It is sound off time now. Every day here on Live at 3, we tackle one of the day's big issues with our colleague from News Radio 620, WTMJ, Jeff Wagner.
And Wisconsin Supreme Court will not take up any of the voter ID lawsuits in the near future. That means it doesn't look like an injunction will be lifted against voter ID anytime soon. And the sound off question today is it good that voter ID requirements won't be in place for the recall elections?
And just as a starting point, some people are kind of wondering about the process and why doesn't the Supreme Court get involved. Traditionally, the way courts happen is you have trials in front of a circuit court, appeals to the appellate court level, and then appeals to the Supreme Court. In extraordinary cases, that can be short-circuited some way and the Supreme Court can take the case directly, but that typically doesn't happen. And yesterday, the state Supreme Court said that they weren't going to take the case out of order, essentially. It doesn't mean they're not going to take it at some point in time, but it does mean that if they take it, it's probably not going to be for, my guess is, at least a year, which certainly means that for the upcoming recalls, probably these injunctions are going to be in effect. So let's start with Bonnie and Franklin.
It is definitely not good. What better way to find out if there's fraud or not? What better way for somebody to identify who they are than to show their ID? I mean, you need an ID for everything that you do nowadays. Why not show it when you vote? I mean, this is absolutely crazy. It is definitely not good that it is not in place. I definitely think it should be in place.
And the argument against her point there that some would make is voting is a right enshrined in the Constitution, and barriers to executing that right could potentially be unconstitutional.
You know, it's interesting. If you poll on this question, it polls about 75% of people making that argument. You need voter ID to get around everything. It's about 75-25. And interestingly, that's kind of where we had a huge response on our sound off line, and that's kind of where the response was. About, for every one person who said bad idea, 3 said it was a good idea. I mean, average citizens, I think, just don't see this as a big deal because most people have voter ID, but against maybe there's a certain group of people on the fringe of society that doesn't. Here's Lauren in Milwaukee.
No, I don't believe it's a good idea that voter ID is not in place. I'm still baffled how a judge had the right to overturn this whole voter ID thing in the first place and why it's taking so long to put it back into place. So if you think the unions don't have anything to do with this, well, I guess we're wrong.
Of course, there's two separate cases. There's 2 injunctions, but both did come out of Dane County Circuit Court. And I know that's another thing that people have issues with. It's like, okay, well, you've got 72 counties in Wisconsin. Why does all this get routed through the 12, 13, 14 judges you've got in Dane County?
That's where the capital is.
Yeah. That's where the capital is, right? So they handle those cases. Here's Pat in Milwaukee.
No, I feel everyone should show ID. Everybody at the age of 18 legally is supposed to have an ID anyway. And the people that didn't have them, they could get them free. So there's no excuse that everybody doesn't have one. Every time I go to vote, I should show my ID.
The first time I ever voted was here in Wisconsin. And when I was a student at Marquette. And I loved that I could just walk in with my student ID and proof of address and I was allowed to vote.
But you had an ID. You had your student ID.
I had my student ID.
One more call. Here's Susan in West Dallas.
I do believe it's a good thing that voter ID will not be required at that time. I don't believe it should be required at any time because it's going to be stopping people from voting, which I don't think is a good thing for democracy.
Well, that's the debate that has been playing out in the state for the last 5 years, 6 years or whatever, and it just moves to a different phase. I do predict at some point in time the Supreme Court will take the case, but probably not anytime soon. So we'll continue to have this issue to kick around a while, so stay tuned.
Check back in with you.
Get a couple more sound offs out of this. All right, let's head over